Next, Save Me Bigfoot brought up a very excellent point, one that I had not thought of, and one that many of you brought up time and again, and that is that there could be genre specificity to the success of the Minecraft model. In other words, if Minecraft were a completely different concept, and I realize that blows up my whole question, but this is just hypothetical. This is just a thought experiment, right? Let's say Minecraft was a completely different kind of game. They really couldn't release it in the way that they did over the course of the last year and a half, 2 years. It couldn't have worked that way. The fact that Minecraft is kind of the open world game that it is, the fact that it is so kind of radically different in terms of that there are no real goals. It's just kind of a sandbox with nothing but grains of sand. At least initially. Now it's, you can argue that there have been a lot of changes to it, but I think that makes a lot of sense, guys. I think that there are genre specific, caveats to the success of Minecraft. Maybe even, and some of you talked about this too, is that it could have a developer-specific success rate in something like an indie game, for example. And I think that has a lot of credence. There are plenty of games out there with linear stories. I think of something like Braid, which is an indie game. I'm not so sure Braid ever could have been released in anything but a final form. I think Braid wouldn't be nearly as successful, and it certainly wouldn't have been Minecraft had it been released in the same way Minecraft was developed. And that's even an indie game. And some of the reason why is because of the story, the refinements, the music, the things that really made it what it is. I think it just it would not have lent itself well to the Minecraft model. And Prangerade talked about Minecraft being a moment and not a movement. And the always wise Chris Pranger is wise here as well. I could not agree more. Minecraft represents... So can I brag about it? Can I tie it all together, guys? The History Channel had that awesome show called Man, Moment, Machine, right? Forget that for just a second, necessarily in terms of man and moment machine. And let's think about Minecraft as idea and moment, and kind of the audience, us as the audience being there to enjoy it, right? So in that, I think we just had that kind of perfect, that perfect moment of all the pieces, the perfect storm of elements coming together to make that tremendous game. And I just think, I just think that really works very, very well. And I would love to see more of that. But is it a movement that's going to change the way people develop games? I think that's probably not the case. And I think if I'm going to move in now to my idea, I think my sentiment echoes you guys' really up and down. I don't think this changes the big boys at all. I think this represents a moment in time and not a movement for the overall changing of games. However, I want to say that first off, my point was never to say that AAA titles will be made differently because of Minecraft. I think it's foreseeable, but I don't think it's probably going to happen. After that, I would say this though. What I was pointing toward was a kind of greater saturation of smaller independent games that get made similarly to Minecraft, right? So and several examples were given in some of the comments that haven't been nearly as successful, but I think Minecraft is still a work in progress, even though it's been released. And I think there are other games that take this kind of groundswell of support and come into really tremendous ideas that get made into a game that just are spectacular. And I think, I would point more to that, a kind of groundswell of saturation of smaller games that are getting remade. I think Minecraft does represent kind of a watershed moment that is going to be difficult to meet again. And I'm not sure it necessarily changes the game, but I do think it necessarily shows what the goal could be for an idea that becomes an amazing achievement in terms of a video game. And I think it really did make everyone take notice. There's no doubt about that. And some games, and I think I've talked about this a little bit as another point that I want to make. A lot of games out there would not, cannot evolve in the same way that Minecraft did. And not just necessarily because of genre, but think about from a development perspective. Notch had a fairly simple idea to code initially. A lot of video game ideas don't begin that way. Think of something like Peter Molyneux, who thinks in a very, very large set of terms. I don't think when Notch was thinking about Minecraft, he was thinking about the kind of grandiose creations you see these days, or even the kind of end games that you have. I think he was picturing something more of a kind of classical sandbox and an idea of some of the games that it stole from. And I say stole, when I say stole, I mean really, think about it, guys. Everybody's idea really requires standing on the shoulders of giants, to quote Ian Malcolm, right? You have to be able to kind of use something from before. And Minecraft definitely borrows from a lot of games in a lot of different ways. But it does it in a tremendously interesting and compelling way. What Minecraft did here, I would have to say, is an amazing moment. I think it represents tremendous progress for the video game industry. That being said, I'm not sure it definitely changes the game. That being said, I think it also does make everyone out there that makes video games take notice. And I think almost everywhere you go. The other day I was walking down the street, I saw a pickup truck parked on the side of the road, and the middle window had green tape placed strategically so that the face of a creeper was represented on it. I thought that was ridiculously creative, but my point is, it's everywhere. And I happen to live in a community that's full of people that make video games, so it's probably not that crazy. But my point is, if you make video games, you know about Minecraft. And that, in and of itself, I think affects the zeitgeist that's out there about folks that make video games for a living. So in that regard, I think Minecraft has changed things, but I don't think it's going to change the way that people make video games. And I think every once in a while you might hit on something like this, but as we said, guys, it's very difficult to catch lightning in a bottle twice. There it is. All right. Now, we haven't had a good comparison question in a while, and that's why I wanted to ask that for next week in terms of a question, because I think it's an important, it's an important thing we do here on the Wringer. I like to see these wars kind of ignite and see what happens when people take camps and just go at it after each other. So I'm not going to paint this in any kind of particular way. I'm not going to even spend a lot of time really talking about it or hashing it out. I'm just going to ask you the comparison question like I always do here on the Weekly Wringer and let you guys take off, okay? Here is the comparison question for next week, the 1-year anniversary of the Weekly Wringer. Luigi, Diddy Kong. What do you think, guys? What do you think? That's the question I want you to look out for next week. Let me know what your thoughts might be, and hopefully we'll ignite something here, and you guys can talk a lot about it. And remember, those of you that aren't the frequent visitors to the site, that next week is the third annual marathon we're putting on. This one is for the American Cancer Society. Please, 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 please tune in. Maybe we'll have something Wringer specific about it. After all, it is happening on the weekend. Hint, hint. And definitely tune into it. Definitely donate if you can. And if you can't, just get along for the ride, because it should be a hell of a lot of fun. So, with that said, I am the Commodore from the Clan of the Grey Wolf. Thank you for watching, everybody. And there is no reset button.